Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. Hey, I have a special event coming up for free August 26th through the 28th, and it is my free Crickets to Clients event. We're going to be covering the freebie funnel formula to help you attract more leads on a daily basis, how to create a freebie that your audience actually wants instead of something where you feel like it's crickets when you post about it, and how do you go about nurturing those leads into turning into clients. So if you want to join this free event, go to haileyrowe.com/live event, all one word. And if you can't find the link or you need help, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe, and we'll get you all set for the free challenge coming up. See you then. I am live today with James Allen from ProfitYourKnowledge.com, and he is on a mission to help you work less and earn more and be able to not just hustle and grind, but actually be productive in your working hours and create more automated income. So thank you for being here, James. And why don't you just share with me, how did you get into this world and what got you so interested in this topic?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. And I'm super excited to drop some knowledge bombs for your audience. Just stuff that's really worked for me, honestly. So I was in construction work pretty much out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. And my dad really was like, you should go into construction because you can make money right away. And you can get college credits and all this stuff. So I was like, why not? I don't really want to go to school again. So I went into that. And I realized pretty quick within the first year that I didn't want to do that for 40 years and that it wasn't super exciting for me. So I started looking at different options, and long story short, I found out about coaching and was like, that's amazing, because when I was 17, I found the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and that just changed my life and introduced me into the world of personal development. So I love personal development when I realized that you can get paid to like have conversations with people and help people and do personal development stuff and turn that into a very lucrative career and have freedom. I was sold. I was like, that is what I want, I want the laptop lifestyle, if you will. So I ended up getting certified, started my business, realized that it was really difficult to start a business. It was way harder than I thought it would be. And I had to learn all like the business, the marketing side of stuff, which is now what I get to help people with. And I love it because I've been there. So I was a spiritual life coach when I first started. And after working with more and more people, I felt more like a therapist than anything. And it just wasn't really my thing. And no matter how much I changed, it just wasn't really aligned with me. So I took components of that, but then I moved into the performance and productivity space because I loved helping entrepreneurs like buy back their time and just be more productive, because I would meet with a ton of people and they were just super messy and unorganized with their computers and their tech, and they weren't being productive and knowing what tasks are going to help them move like forward, and they just were staying stuck for that. And like I had more of an idea on how to do that because I had to teach myself how to do it. So I was getting more clients there. And I was just obsessed with like, how do I grow my business and work fewer hours? And that's where I learned about online courses and digital products and passive income. So I was sold. And I built I think 5 different online courses, and they didn't make me any money whatsoever. And then I made one that was the 6th one, and I think it was the 6th. And I finally cracked the code. I woke up in the middle of in the morning, and overnight I made a $200 sale. And I was like, have I known this person? Because I could sell courses, but it always had to be on a phone call. And when I looked the person up, had no idea who they were. It was incredible. And then a few weeks later, I made a $300 sale with a couple different pricing options. And it was just so cool to not have any sort of interaction with these people. They just found like my free content, read some emails, read a page, gave me hundreds of dollars, totally hands off. And then it started to snowball. Then I started making like my rent every month just on autopilot. And I was like, this is incredible. And then the people I was working with in productivity started to ask me, because a lot of them were coaches and people in this space. They were like, can you help me do that? Because that sounds awesome. And I said, yeah, why not? So I started helping them, and then people started making money. And then I started Profit Your Knowledge, and I've been going at that ever since.
Amazing. I love it. There's so many points in your story where I'm like, yeah, I've been there. I remember that. And one of them was when you said you made your first online sale with someone you didn't know for a course. That is the same thing with me. When I first put out one of my courses, I was at a workshop over the weekend and learning something or whatever. And I was like so curious about this email launch. I was like always checking my phone at this event. And I remember seeing like the first two sales come through and I was like, oh, what? Like they
Such a
didn't
cool
go on a
feeling.
call with me. They didn't like, I don't know who this is. Like it was so satisfying. And that's why I'm such a big fan of growing your email list and having good freebies and lead people to your email list, because that is like an asset that just can build over time and be a great way to market. And speaking in the spirit, I just side note for everybody listening, because this is timely. In the Work Smart marketing membership, we go through how do you create freebies, how do you, drive more traffic to your email list. And we're going to be having training more on that soon. So anyways, point being, I get that. And then the other thing you said is you wanted to, like, it was like a dream to be able to help people and do personal development and all that kind of stuff. I agree. I think that part of the allure of coaching is that you kind of get paid to like keep learning things and helping people and teaching things. But a lot of people think that it always means forever they have to do one-on-one. And I think it can be a great idea to get one-on-one experience, help people hands-on, but eventually you can also have or transition to kind of what you're saying, like digital products and things like that. So I want to ask you about that, because digital courses, you were saying early on, they weren't really selling for you until you figured it out. So tell us more about what had to shift for you to be able to sell digital courses.
Yeah. Customer research, that and copywriting. Those are like honestly, the two biggest things that if I could like restart, anytime I do build a course now, I do it. And I've gotten better at copywriting over the years. But like, if you want to sell anything on the internet, you have to get good at copywriting. And if somebody's starting out, that is what I would tell you, because I wish somebody like really hit that home for me. People always told me it's speaking or it's like conversations, which are incredibly important. Those are really helpful. But in terms of making like passive income sales or getting somebody onto your email list with like Hailey's method for creating a lead magnet, like sure, you can make the lead magnet, but what are you telling people that's making them want to get onto the email list? Like that's copywriting. It's when you land on the page and the writing is there and you're like, I need this. And then you give the information. So it's persuasive writing or salesmanship in print. And I learned about that and it turned on my radar. And a huge piece of copywriting is the customer research. So they really do go hand in hand, because before that, I would do what most people do when they build digital products. They say, ooh, I have this cool idea, or I have hundreds of ideas. I'm just going to pick one. And then they start making a course. They put all this time into it. They have like 30 lessons that they just spent months building. And then they put it out there and nobody buys. And that was me and the experience that I dealt with for so long. And now I have a much more efficient, more predictable way of building products, which I'm happy to share. But a huge piece of what actually made it sell was actually talking to the people I wanted to help, being like, what do you find valuable? What are you struggling with? What are you trying to achieve? And what's getting in the way for you? And then when you make copy and you're like trying to hit home a pain point, you can literally look at a document, which is what I teach everybody to do that I work with, the customer research document. And you're like, oh, all my pains and frustrations are organized right here. And I can just sift through those and be like, this is a good phrase. And then you plug it into your copywriting. And that is what allows people, if you've ever read a sales page and you're like, I feel like this person's reading my mind. It's because we all have shared experiences. If two people are dealing with the same problem, chances are millions of people are too. So that's where you can read it and be like, this guy gets me, or this girl gets me. They know what I'm struggling with. They know what I want to achieve. I think I'm going to pick up this course.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of market research. One of my first clients came from doing that process, because they said what they struggled with. They said it in their exact words, and they said what they were looking for. And I was like, okay, can I give that to you? And so it can sometimes be some tweaks. And I think a lot of times people think, example, they might have a course that's like, find your purpose and passion, but that's not focused on, does your person say every day, wake up in the middle of the night, like, I got to find my passion and purpose? Maybe, but most likely it's something more short-term, urgent, pinpointed, specific, etc. So can you give me an example of what was like a copy shift that you like what you were doing, what you were saying before you made the shift in your copy and market research in incorporating that, and then after, like maybe give an example of what you were kind of what had to shift on your headline or some kind of way you were talking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does go back to the customer research, because before, like literally, I would just write stuff, and I would look at other people's sales pages and be like, oh, like they're saying this, so I'm going to say like something like that, you know? And that's kind of what it was. And it's so much more predictable when you know, and it's not just the copywriting, like it's also the product that you're building too, and being really clear as to who it's best suited for and the clear problem that's going to solve for those people. Finding your purpose, it's very vague, you know, but like, I mean, it could be like finding your dream job. There's very successful. Ramit Sethi has a course on find your dream job, and it's massive, but he's really, really good at doing customer research and extremely thorough with it. He's one of the people who taught me about it. So in his audience, typically, like he talks about finances, and then he talks about starting a business and then finding your dream job. Like it's all around kind of the workforce. So he knew by talking to people that they wanted a product to find a dream job. They're like, you know, like I don't really want to start a business. I just want to have a really good job where I get paid, you know, a nice, comfortable amount, and I can have freedom or whatever it is that they want. So he found the demand, and then he supplied that demand. And that's why we always do customer research before we ever build anything. Because a lot of people, they just like make stuff up in a vacuum. And anybody who's listening to this and they're hearing what I said earlier about like, oh, I have hundreds of ideas, which one do I do? I always say, look at them, pick the top 3 that you're most interested in or that you think would be the most valuable, and then pitch those to your audience. That's what I did with my most recent course. I had 2 ideas, and I said, hey guys, I'm thinking about doing either this or this. It's going to be priced around this. What do you think? Which one do you want? And then a bunch of people messaged back, and the majority of people said number 2. So that's the one that I built, because now I know what my audience actually wants.
Great advice. Yeah. One of my most successful courses was about how to book discovery calls using Instagram. And it came from a Facebook challenge I did that was free. That was my most popular Facebook challenge out of all the titles. So sometimes you put something out there in your content or freebie, or even just, as you said, polling before you make it is a great idea. And that can get you the feedback you need to know, should I make this a course or something like that? So I love that advice. And one of the things you said, though, is you had people messaging you back on your poll saying, I want this course. A thing I know my people are thinking while they're listening to this is, yeah, I do that, but nobody responds. Or nobody's in, like my options suck because nobody's saying anything, or I can't even get somebody to be on a market research call, like give me feedback. So what would you say to somebody really struggling with getting the feedback, how they go about it? Like any advice on that?
Yeah, so you want to find a good watering hole is a term for it, but that's just like a Facebook group where you know that your people are hanging out. For example, let's say I wanted to build a course to help professional athletes level up their game. I could go even more niche than that. That's very broad, but being like professional golfers, like you're an amateur golfer, you want to go pro. That's more clear as to who I'm helping and what I'm helping them do. I would go into like Facebook groups where amateur golfers are that are obviously competitive. I want to get like in front of those people and then make a poll and be like, would you take some sort of course like this? And you can always just reach out to people. Like it's a very easy way is through Facebook groups and just message people. And if you ever do like a market research call, nobody wants to be sold. So it could be the way that you're presenting it to people where they feel like, you're going to sell me something. You mentioned earlier that a client came from a market research call. I think the biggest difference between a market research call and a sales call is the invite. That's pretty much it. All you're doing at the end of the sales call is being like, well, do you want help with that? Are you ready to do this now? Here's what it looks like to work with me. Here's how I can help you. Market research call is like, I'm not going to ask you anything. I'm just going to ask you some questions and that's it. Thanks so much for hanging out. Here's a gift card or something. So it's just, it could be the energy and the way you're presenting it. Oftentimes just best to be like, hey, I'm thinking about building a product, and I want to help golfers, and maybe kind of, if you've been posting in the group, people kind of know you a bit more. Like it's all just about people. If you just run up to some random person or like all in their face about something, they're gonna be like, dude, I don't know you. Like this is weird. Some people are nice, but a lot of people won't be. The people that I messaged, it actually wasn't a Facebook group. It was through my email list. So those people, I had been building a list over time, and they were warm, and I messaged my list, 2 to 3 times a week. So they're familiar with me. We have a relationship, but it always comes back to the relationship that you have with people, and then being able to connect with those people. I think that that's like a big thing to look at. And just people, I think that people, if they're struggling with that, they're either talking to the wrong people, first of all, which is why everyone's like, this doesn't make any sense, or their energy is very much like off. It's off-putting, or they're trying to be too like markety or something, like trying to be too strategic. And it's like, the strategy is to talk to people and be a human. If you approach it with the genuine intention to like help people and learn about them, then people pick up on that. Like, people read vibes, and I think people just make stuff way too complicated.
Completely agree. And one of my favorite feelings to lead you in your business from is curiosity. And just naturally, like it was with my market research call, it wasn't like, oh yeah, you need to sign up for this program. It was like, interesting. Like, and they were like, if you make something like this, let me know. I was like, okay, I will. And it can happen like that. So when you're really interested in the person and you're hearing their feedback and you're taking it in and you care and you're, people will read that.
Present.
So I think you're right about that. I want to ask you about digital courses, because there is this other stat, I don't know where it comes from, but it's basically like 11% of people finish a digital course. It's
13,
a very low
5%.
completion rate. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Because as service providers, we want to get people results. And so we don't want them to just, buy our course and not do it. So what's your tips on that?
Yeah. So I had a couple people reach out to me recently in my new course, and they were like kind of the first guinea pig people to go through it. And multiple people messaged me and said, I just finished 100% of your course. Awesome. And it was, I'm not going to say everybody finishes all of my courses all the time, but the way that you build it is going to have a huge impact on people's completion rates. Now, what a lot of people do is they're very aloof with building online courses. They just kind of like slap up some videos and there's no real strategy, but also they're putting in the wrong information, or they're putting in too much information. Because if I get into a course, and there's times too, like I'm an avid course taker, user, but I just paid for a course with actually setting up my whole YouTube studio, all the lighting and all that kind of stuff. It was a huge piece of it, and that's what inspired me to do all this. But there was one section where it's like, I was going through some of it and it's like, I already know like all this stuff, so I could just skip that model. Or that module, so I kind of skipped around a couple pieces, but I finished like 78% of it. I'm a fan of like, if I buy it, I'm going to finish it. But when you're building a course, I'm a fan, to stop this problem from happening, of building MVPs, or minimum viable products. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about, you put like all this time, months into building a course, and it has like 30 lessons, and it's just a lot. The people going in, and also the lessons are like half hour long. Like, I don't got time for this, So I always keep a note in my mind when building really anything, but especially courses, of as short as possible, but long enough. Because the point of your course is to help someone get from point A to point B. Like you were talking about your Instagram course. It's very clear. It's like, here's the transformation you're going to experience. So there's a big transformation that I'm expecting to get when I take your course. Every lesson, depending on how you build a course, let's just say it's a step-by-step, should build off of the previous lesson and be like mini transformations that lead to the big transformation that you're promising people. And the length of your lessons is a huge question I get. Like, oh, I made it 14 minutes. Is that like long enough? I'm like, it might be too long. It just depends on the lesson. And a lot of people, when we're teaching stuff, we tend to just pack fluff. Have you ever read a book and the book is just 90% fluff and you're like, I could have got the message way faster? A lot of people just aren't very good at like teaching in that way. So I'm such a fan of keeping it a minimal approach. So when you've done your research, this is what I always tell people, look at the research and you're going to see common trends, like a common pain point that everybody's feeling. My productivity course, which was the first one that sold for me, completely hands off. After doing my customer research, I realized that the big transformation that people wanted was greater focus. They're like, I just can't focus throughout the day, and looking back, now I would have gone more granular, but it still sold, it was good enough. And people wanted to be able to just maintain focus and know what to focus on to help them grow their business. So I made a course called Peak Focus Academy. And even back then, I think I made it too big because now I know about minimum viable products. So when you pinpoint this transformation that people want, just think like, what are the fewest but most necessary steps I can tell someone if they're like telling me that they want to do this to take to get them from point A to point B. If it's 10 steps, perfect. I would say try and do it around 10 lessons just to start. And I'm not saying your course has to forever be that long or has to forever be at a lower price point in the beginning, because you can start with a course that's, let's say, 10 lessons, but it gets them that transformation. I don't know about you, but if you gave me a course that would help me like get clients through Instagram and it was only 10 lessons and it got me the result I wanted, you're a rock star. I don't care. You know, if it's making me thousands and thousands of dollars, like you can even charge more for that too. So people just want the transformation, but people think that more information and more courses or more lessons is going to equate to more value, but that's not true. It's helping them get the transformation. So if you could do that in fewer lessons, they're going to appreciate it. And you can start the course at like $97, which is very affordable. And I'm just throwing a number out there. I always recommend in the beginning anywhere from like $50 to $200. That's just a very easy price point for people. And then as you get people into your course, you can get feedback from them, which you should be, and checking in with them and have a bit of like community, whether it's a Facebook group or I like to have comment sections inside of my courses. And you get to get feedback on what people feel like is missing. When I built my my course, Effortless Income, people were like, oh, I'd really like to have more SEO. I was expecting more SEO. I'm like, no worries. I'll add a lesson all about SEO, you know, and I'll give you some cool tools and stuff to help you with that. I thought that I did go into it, but apparently it wasn't enough. And then you can build that, let's say $97 course eventually into a $497 product that you know is going to sell and get people results because it's only filled with great information and no fluff.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a good point, is take the feedback in. More is not better. We all come across that lesson on our journey at some point. And I think also you mentioned some structure, like having one of my clients teaches people how to create courses that people actually follow through on based on neuroscience. And that structure is such a huge part of her training, because she talks about how your brain wants to know, like within each lesson, as you were saying, those mini transformations, like by the end of this lesson, what am I going to know? Why is it important I know this? And then how do I implement it? And so many people just give info and then it's not like, how do you apply it? And as you said, so much fluff. So that was a very good point. Now, one other question for you, because digital products are maybe less expensive perhaps than, you know, private coaching or things like that. So it requires more sales, more volume to hit your income goals, perhaps with a course. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on how can somebody increase their volume? Like going back to the productivity conversation, like what are some productive steps for them to be able to sell things at a higher volume compared to maybe what they're used to, which is like maybe taking discovery calls or things like that?
Yeah, selling at a higher volume, that really comes down to the audience building, which is what you guys are going to be covering in your program, about like building your email list, having a very good email list, but more importantly, creating an ecosystem where people are constantly joining the email list, and then they're, you know, getting some more value, learning about your program. And I mean, there's like literally an endless amount of possibilities to do this. You know, especially what happens after people join the email list. But in terms of getting more like traffic or volume, I don't do a lot of paid ads, and, you know, I do well and I've done well. I was making money from YouTube, for example, since I had 200 subscribers. I was making thousands of dollars from YouTube. I wasn't even monetized because I use YouTube to get discovered. But what I'm a fan of is like, I don't like posting every day on social media. So I don't. I'd use podcasting and YouTube. And that does very well for me. And I work 20 hours a week, you know, and it's all good. So with YouTube, if you make videos that your target audience are looking for and or interested in, because I say and or interested in because there's search and then there's like browse on YouTube anyway. And I've taken tons of courses, and this is like what a lot of the big people teach. So browse is if you land on the homepage and you just see a bunch of videos and you're like, what am I going to watch today? Those are basically made different than just search videos. Search videos that oftentimes in the thumbnail, it'll say like how to do, it's just like the title, the same exact title. It's like how to do X. And that's helpful in the moment that I'm searching for something, but creating like a more community, like established community and return viewers, it's being really strategic with like your YouTube channel. And I love YouTube, but blogging works great, or podcasting is awesome too. I think that if you're going to do a podcast, you should couple it with a YouTube channel or a blog with the different things that you're teaching. But being clear as to like, this is a big problem that I solve, and having a niche for a certain amount of people or a certain group of people, that's going to help with you getting discovered more. Because even small niches, or what you think are small niches, just on YouTube alone, can have millions and millions of people in a small niche. So you can still be incredibly wealthy off of just a very tiny niche. So it's like, it's picking your niche is a huge piece. It's making the right kind of content that's only going to help those people solve that big problem. A quick example with that is, in my coaching program that I'm in, not that I'm running, I paid to be in this one. It's all about YouTube. And one of the instructors was telling us about this one example of a different client he worked with. And in every video, it said lose 20 pounds at some point in the title, because she helps women lose weight. And specifically, they really want to lose 20 pounds. You really have to understand your audience and who you're making content for. So I think if you can do a really simple, like I help who do what, but how you're doing that is different. The what is the specific problem you solve. So over the years, I've gotten really clear that I am a fan, and I know that I can help these people who were just like me. We found out about coaching. We're like, this sounds incredible. We got certified. We got into the game. We got into the field and realized this is way harder than I thought it was. And then we had to learn like the marketing and sales kind of stuff. So there's a lot of people just stuck in that phase where they haven't really dialed in the niche or all this other stuff. So I decided like, I'm going to help coaches break past 10K per month and do it in under 20 hours a week. It's very clear if I say that and people see it and they're like, that's what I want to do. Because the old version of me, if I saw that, I'd be like, I want to learn from this guy. And if every video on my channel or on my blog or whatever it is about helping a coach break past 10K per month or work fewer hours or do them simultaneously, then it's all congruent, and I'm building a tribe that is trying to solve that problem. To solve that problem, though, there's a lot of different angles you can take. So I'm a fan of like YouTube and blogging because it's free. You can reach literally an unlimited amount of people, and your content compounds, call it compounding content, to where you start getting a really nice amount of traffic as long as you're offering a good lead magnet. And it just creates this ecosystem where you're constantly getting discovered and having people join your email list, and then you can make more sales. And that's how you can have like evergreen sort of sales. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really like you have to pick one of those mediums, I think, that is going to work for you. And I'm not saying it just has to be one of those. It can be social media too. I have a client, for example, and she'd like to do YouTube. She really wants to, but she's crushing it on TikTok and it works for her. Yeah. So I'm like, then hang out on TikTok. Literally every time she goes live, she's selling courses that we made for her. It's like, it's bonkers. So she crushes it. I'm not such a big fan of being on TikTok. I prefer YouTube. So yeah, I think it's finding like a platform that works for you and then learning how that platform does work, because there's certain content and a vibe to TikTok and a vibe to YouTube and certain content that works better on each one. And then you just have to really learn it. So it's my long-winded answer.
No, it's helpful. I mean, the answer is there is no one answer. And so you have to find what works for you and stick with something. But the theme here is, have a specific promise, be showing up consistently on that one platform, use search terms if you're going to use something like YouTube where people are searching for the problem you solve. And so the other thing I want to ask you is, what is one productivity shift that a coach could make this week to be more productive and not just be doing busy work or be working more hours with the grind?
Yeah, I always tell people, people are like, how do you work fewer hours? What's the secret? And because I work 20 hours a week in my business, and I say that with confidence because I bookmark it into my calendar. It's time blocked. Yeah. So I always tell people the fastest way to work fewer hours is just to work fewer hours. And I know that's so simple, but it doesn't have to be more complicated, because we all know that okay, if you go to a job and you quote unquote work for 8 hours, you're not actually working for 8 hours. You got bathroom breaks, you're like kind of dilly dallying with the coworkers or whatever. And there was actually there was a study, I think it was in Sweden, and they went down to 6-hour work days and their productivity skyrocketed because people were actually working because they had a condensed time frame. So I give myself about 5 hours in a day to work, but sometimes it's 4. Sometimes I go a little bit longer if I have like an extra call and it's just something important, but I can make those decisions. But on average, it's a 5-hour workday and that's it, 4 days a week. So that's what I would say. I'd say look at your calendar and look at all the tasks that you're doing too, and decide how many hours would I love to work. If it's 20 hours a week, bookmark that time into your calendar. And when I say bookmark, I'm not saying you have to account for every single minute. Just I do from 9 to 2. It's one giant block. And I know that mentally I am in my work block and that's it. After that, I'm in family and friends. So after this, I'm going to end a little early because I can today, but my girlfriend and I are going to go do some stuff. We're going to go take care of some errands and stuff today. But yeah, when I'm in my work blocks, I'm working. So if you set up that time, it forces you, if you're like, I only have 5 hours to do this, to figure out how to make like 6 figures in my business, then you're going to figure out how to do it in 5 hours or in 20 hours a week, rather than 80 hours a week of you probably just doing a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. I know that for me, after about 5 hours, my productivity goes down. Like mentally, I'm tired, if I'm on calls or I'm doing stuff, like it takes a lot of creativity and energy. So when I'm working for 5 hours, and I prefer that over dilly-dallying for an extra 3.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm such a fan of that. And I'm the same way. I like to go in these blocks and just be like, awesome. And then go on my walks and work out and do other things. Or, and sometimes the freedom of being an entrepreneur is so nice because you can decide, do you want your block all in one? Do you want to split it? How do you want to do it? But same thing. And I actually time you bring up a good point about like, pick how long you want things to take you. I time myself and I get a toggle report at the end of the week. And I'm kind of like, it's weird because I'm so used to like, I should be working 40 hours. And when I get my time report and it's like, oh, I only worked like 30 hours this week, or I only worked like 28. I have this weird belief, like, what are you doing? You need to get that up to 40. It's like, right. I got my stuff done. Like, why should I be upset or mad at myself for like being productive, Yeah. So it's weird that we have this idea in our society, like it should be 40 hours or something. Maybe that's just in my head, but no, it's a thing. Yeah. I remember when I was super tired one day and I just wasn't feeling very creative, wasn't feeling very productive, and anything I was doing it wasn't good work. And I knew that even if I grinded through and got my hours in, I would have to come back the next day and fix this anyway. So it's like, I just decided when I was feeling the same thing that you were feeling, I'm like, but I have to like be working because I'm on the clock. And it's like, well, no, you don't, I've gotten everything done. We're still making money this month. We're good. You could take the day off, go work out, go for a walk, go hang out with your girlfriend, like whatever you want to do, go with family or anything. So it is definitely a mental shift. And I think that it starts to go away over time, the longer you do it. But when you're starting to get into that, where it's like you are making more predictable income and you don't need to be working all the time, you kind of feel like you should be. Yeah. Definitely. Well, on that note, I want to leave everybody with the challenge this week to decide, decide the hours you have, and then decide to make it work with whatever most important things you need to get done within those hours. And so how can everybody connect with you, learn more, all the things?
Yeah, you can just Google Profit Your Knowledge. My website comes up, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I mean, my podcast too, like everything is under Profit Your Knowledge. And Hailey's going to be on our show too. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah, when you think about the hours too, just to add to that real quick, that you want to work, it's going to require you to cut away a lot of things that you're probably doing. So I would recommend, on top of deciding like, I would love to work 20 hours or 30 hours in a week, or even 5, whatever you can do, then write down all the tasks that you're doing right now to try and generate income. And, hopefully some of them are working, and I mean, if you're learning from Hailey, I'm sure you're getting some awesome information. It's like you're clear on the specific tasks that are going to make you money. But we get lost in starting to try and do all these other things. It's like the more focused you can be on just those few things that do generate the result you want, the better off you're going to be. So get really good at those in that shorter amount of time, and you'll be good.
I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much, James. Really great episode, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.